Hello YouTube, this is Silver Age Dave. Today is Monday again. I'm doing a shout out support video for Comic Book Ben. He's celebrating 150 subs. He had 173 subs last week when I originally made a video, but I listened to it after the fact and I was just going on and on talking crazy. So I'm redoing it. Standard rules. I'll put a link in for him. I want to know how many comics you have, do you have other hobbies, and your favorite comic. And that contest ends July 4th. So I thought I would do my shout-outs first. I did a shout-out video last week for R. Wheatley, which I loved. And it was kind of my earliest people that I found. And, of course, community's so incredible. There's a lot of people that could have easily made that list, but I found them later. So I'm going to do, shout-outs moving forward. I'm going to try to cover guys that I hadn't talked about previously. The first one is going to be Arkham Comics Las Vegas. He does a great job. He tells it like it is. You know, I so appreciate someone who's not afraid to speak their mind. He's had a store, and he knows the industry inside and out. And when you watch some of his older videos, he's very informative, gives you a lot of great information. So that's Arkham Comics Las Vegas, and he does his new weekly pull list. He sometimes does older books, and sometimes does newer books, but just a great channel. And then my other guy, of course, I found him more recently. He's just exploded. One of the best channels for new collectors, Jim Comics. Jim is just an incredible guy. He puts a lot of time and effort and energy into making his videos. I feel like he is the go-to for Comic Book Wednesday. If you're wondering what's coming out and what do I buy and how do these things interconnect, well, then Jim Comics is my guy. And I did fancy artwork for Jim. I didn't do it for Arkham Comics Las Vegas. As you can tell, my markers are running low on ink. So if you shorten your name up, then I could do fancy art. Otherwise, we get what we get, because I don't want to spend the money on new markers, is frankly what's going on. So how many comics do you have? Anyone who watches my channel, it's no surprise, I have a lot of comics. This is, maybe half of them. I don't know. I've got most of my comics. I'm split between 3 different locations. And, I started collecting in the very early 70s. Just as a little kid, but it caught on. And so, frankly, I don't know how many. It's over 20,000, and we'll just leave it at that. But I love every single one of them. There's no such thing as a bad comic in my mind. Some of the grown-up stuff I don't collect, so I guess those are kind of bad comics. But most other comics are good comics in my mind. And as for a favorite comic, I guess I would go with this Batman. I've shown it off before. I showed it off the other day in the Joker video. It's one of the earliest ones I can remember my Busha buying me. It's a treasury. I've got tons of treasuries. I've been asked to do a video on them. I will do a video on treasuries pretty soon. But, it's a part of collecting when you're a little guy and the comic book is, twice the size of your head. You got to rank things by size. And I guess... in that part of my comic collecting, I always saw those things as bigger than life, and they always had interesting parts to them. Okay, so that's that. And then he asked if I have other hobbies, and there's a bunch of hobbies I could talk about, but the one that I'm really trying to get back on the horse, so to speak, is ultra marathon running. And most people have never heard of this. Most people that I come into contact with, even in daily life, I'll have friends who'll be like, hey, let me introduce you to Dave. He's run 100 miles in a row without stopping. And people don't realize that these are real. This is the prize that you get when you successfully finish an ultra marathon. It's a belt buckle. And I thought I'll show you a quick video. This is the Western States. This is a race in California. And it started, you always start these things at like 4 in the morning or 5 in the morning, but this started, a guy named Gordy, very, very early on in California. It was a trail, so these horsemen decided, hey, we're going to try to ride that trail. It took them like 45 hours. So then this horse group started putting together this this event where guys on horseback would ride this trail and they see if anyone could do it in a day, and some people did. But then in 1974, this guy named Gordy, he bought a horse, and it was just a junkie horse, and it actually died, you know, at the just before the start of the race. So he said, well, can I just run it? And so he ran it in less than 24 hours, and that was the start of ultra marathoning. As you can see, the terrain that we run these things on is very complicated, very difficult. This is kind of the holy grail of ultra marathon running, is this Western States. Now, there are harder courses out there. I think they give you 30 or 32 hours to finish this one. There are guys that finish these things very quickly. You're up in the mountains. You're running, you know, basically for more than a day. Finishing this race in under 30 hours is really miraculous. I would think most of these ultra marathons, there's a maybe a 50% success rate, 50% failure. Some of them are down in the 30% success rate, because it is very complicated terrain. And this one, as you can see, they're on some trails that are actual hiking trails, but then they go off trail quite a bit. They're running up and down the side of mountains, and you're on rocky or difficult terrain. I think where they're filming most of this is stuff that people can get to. And this is a nice, it's professionally put together video. You basically run and you go through these aid stations every now and then. Here they port you across a river. It's too deep to cross otherwise. So there's a crew that hangs out there at the river the whole night, and they just port you across. You know, so I've run these things in 90-degree temperatures where you just feel like your feet are going to melt. And you know, sometimes you get into an aid station, they have this bucket of ice water, and they have sponges, and they just put these sponges on your head, and oh, it's just magical. The finish line for this race is at a high school track where you actually enter the stadium and you have to run a loop around the track, which is unbelievable. You know, you see the finish line, but you got to run the long way to get to it. There was a finisher in 16 hours and 19 minutes, 100 miles through the mountains. Just incredible. So, as you can tell from the passion of my voice, here's a finisher, and his family was there and ran. I have had my family do that with me at marathons and ultra marathons, and it's just a way to include the family. It's just a great type of thing. But if you want to watch one and see what is considered the hardest race, it is called Barclays Marathons. It's on Netflix. I'll put I'll try to put a link with the name on it. But that's the hobby that I'm focusing on now. I was running 100-milers. I was doing, you know, 50-milers like they were nothing. I mean, I just wake up in the morning and say, hey, I'm going to take the day off and run 50 miles. So, you know, anything you do, once you get practiced up on it, you can succeed. But I took 3 years off for a health reason, and now I'm trying to get back to it. And I'm doing pretty well, having some challenges, but I'll get there. It won't be this year, but I'm going to get another one of these, and maybe a whole bunch of them, and we'll see. Maybe someday I'll run that Western States. Guys, that's it. So my shout out is to Comic Book Ben. He's got a great channel. Check him out. I will put a link in there. Ben, thanks for doing what you do and supporting the community and making videos. So with that, Silver Age Dave, we've got a 9-minute support shout out. Silver Age Dave is out.